Hello, everyone. Welcome to Ask Asbury. April is Parkinson's Disease Awareness Month. My name is Dr. Sue Paul. I'm the Senior Director of Wellbeing and Brain Health for Asbury Communities. Today's guest is Dr. Mike Studer, a physical therapist who specializes in Parkinson's disease and other kinds of movement disorders. Mike, thanks for being here today.
You know what, Sue? I'm just blessed to be here with you. Thank you for the invitation.
Of course. So let me tell everybody a little bit about you. It's just you have so many accomplishments. I want to make sure I hit them all. Mike is an internationally recognized neurologic physical therapist, educator, and author who specializes in the connection between the brain and the body. And that really is your jam, I know. His work focuses on neuroplasticity, movement, and lifestyle strategies that help people maintain health and function throughout the life. Excuse me. Dr. Studer has spent his career helping individuals with Parkinson's disease and other neurological conditions improve mobility, cognition, and quality of life through evidence-based rehabilitation and practical everyday strategies. So Mike has done a TED Talk, which includes a practical application in persons with Parkinson's disease, and his work in recorded and printed materials for the Davis-Finney Foundation provides the same. Mike is the author of 2 books, highly recommend: The Brain That Chooses itself, which explores how our daily habits and choices influence brain health and longevity, as well as My Facebook, which is a very clever title, which helps individuals manage crisis optimally. So, Mike, thank you so much for being here today.
I'm looking forward to the discussion, and I'm passionate about the topic.
You are. So, Mike and I swim in similar circles, and we're both, passionate about brain health and neurological disorders and things like that. So I think this will be a fun conversation.
I look forward to it. And for the listeners, I've invited Sue and hosted her on my podcast as well. Let's remind ourselves I'm not the only expert in the room here.
Wait till they hear what you have to say, though. So let's jump in. So Parkinson's disease, I think most people think of it as a movement disorder, but your work dives more into how the brain and the body connect. So can you help us understand what's happening with Parkinson's disease and why movement is such a powerful tool in managing the disease?
I will attempt to do so very succinctly. It is now coming to our understanding that there are probably 3 main subtypes of Parkinson's disease. Each one of those subtypes has different interactions and involvements in the non-motor features: autonomic nervous system, heart rate, respiration rate, blood pressure as I change positions, cognition, hallucinations, paranoias, and even how well I sleep and digest. So there are a lot of involvements. That's not intended to be a list that overwhelms people, just to inform them that the brain and body in the diseases, plural, of Parkinson's disease are quite unique. However, we have opportunities in the body to be able to give more health to the brain and stave the disease off to some degree, which I know we're going to get into as well.
Yeah. Well, it's really interesting that there's 3 different, subtypes of Parkinson's. That's probably more than that's a big lesson right there, a big takeaway right there already. So I know you talk a lot about neuroplasticity and the brain's ability to change and adapt. So I'm going to have you explain what neuroplasticity is to our listeners, and then also, tell us how is it possible for the brain to change itself maybe years after a diagnosis of Parkinson's?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I'll take both questions on in order. So first and foremost, we understand that neuroplasticity is any form of learning that we do because we're making new connections between 2 neurons in the brain. There are about 83 billion neurons in the adult human brain, and any of them can make anywhere from 2 connections to 100,000 connections. But they're only going to make those connections if they're stimulated by a new, or what we call a novel, stimulus, something to learn, something that felt important. So I can have fact-based memories. 15 times 15 is 225. I can have event-based memories. You remember that time we went to Disneyland? And I can have movement-based memories. Neuroplasticity is simply making new connections so that the next time I want to grab that memory, it is viable and stored. Now, let's talk about in Parkinson's disease, how we can actually promote neuroplasticity. Yes, is the answer to the second part of your question, even in later years. So neuroplasticity, making new connections, you have to provide a novel stimulus. I'm, as we're going to talk about today, engaging in a thinking and a moving activity at the same time. I'm learning a new sport, pickleball. I'm relearning how to play the piano again or do a dance step. Neuroplasticity doesn't care that you have Parkinson's disease. It does care that you've shown me something that seems enjoyable, new, and meaningful.
Ah, that's a beautiful take home right there. That's a great take home message.
Thank you.
So you mentioned something about, doing an activity that's thinking and moving at the same time. And I think you're talking about dual task training, dual tasking. So can you explain what that is? And can you actually strengthen both the brain and the body, at the same time in Parkinson's disease?
It appears as though we can not only strengthen the brain and the body better with dual tasking, we can actually do it better than if you were to do each one of those as powerfully on their own. Now, let's come back to the first part of your question. What is dual tasking? It's not multitasking, which we hear bad things about, and deservedly so. It's only doing two things that have completely separate goals or objectives at the same time. Examples to make it a little bit more palatable for the audience is if I'm trying to listen to my granddaughter tell me her story about how school was today, while I'm also trying to walk her home, that's dual tasking. I've got to pay attention to my walking. I've got to pay attention to her story. Otherwise, she's going to think I've got no interest or no memory. In addition, when we do a lot of our activities of daily living, Sue, you're an expert in this realm. You're an occupational therapist. I have very little space to be talking about this, but ADLs are really dressing ourselves, providing self-care. If you can imagine that I might be changing clothes into my pajamas for the night while I'm also attempting to listen to that Jeopardy question and answer it at the same time, I'm also dual tasking. They're totally separate tasks. The reason why it works better is number one, efficiency. I'm spending time on brain health and body health at the same time rather than feeling like I don't have time to do either. So, in addition, it actually helps to make our movements, whatever the physical portion we're doing in dual tasking, more automatized. I'll be very clear and quick about this, and that means that our movement will be accessible and available when we need it. I can stand up, I can roll over in bed, I can scoot over, I can walk because I've trained parts of my brain to be able to conduct that movement without my attention placed on it.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah, so I see the value in practicing doing those two things at once, doing two different things at once, because a lot of times in Parkinson's, you really can only attend to one thing at a time. Especially if your movement's impaired and you're worried about falling and you're focused. So if you can practice safely, doing two things at once, I think that's a great benefit.
Yes, it is, Sue. And it ties so beautifully up to your second question about neuroplasticity. One of the principles of neuroplasticity is if we don't use it, we will lose it.
Mm-hmm.
And so by practicing something that's difficult, people with Parkinson's disease can't divide attention. If you give in to that mantra, you will lose it faster than the disease takes it away from you. So by challenging it, we create connections, i.e. neuroplasticity, and we prevent or what we call mitigate the disease progression.
Yep, beautifully. Well said. Well said. So I know a lot of experts talk about the benefits of exercise for Parkinson's disease. So if you'd advise someone today to prioritize a certain type of exercise, what would you suggest?
Sue, you've set me up beautifully for this, and I know you already could answer this just as well without me, so I want to acknowledge that. But I'm going to tell you that exercise is no longer medicine. Movement is medicine.
There you go.
There are many, many individuals that have generationally been brought up to believe that exercise is a waste of time, it's selfish, to participate with your own, some people would say, God-given energies to on other things that don't help other people, my community, or bring me income. So we want to pivot and say movement is medicine and help people to see that all forms of movement that they could be doing are better than no forms of movement. And so when we put everything as exercise as medicine, it becomes somewhat hard to reach. Maybe you stereotype yourself as an individual that can no longer exercise, and so therefore you don't take the walk, do 5 extra repetitions of sitting to standing, practice rapidly getting into and out of bed just for the movement. So we understand that there are many different ways that physical activity has to express itself, or movement. Exercise is one of those, and I just gave a few examples of movements that can be really easily available. We call them exercise snacks that a person could just have right next to their recliner chair. Oh, I'm going to stand up to go to the bathroom. I might as well try 5 of them. I'm going to walk down the hallway. I'm going to see how few steps I can use to get there. And so movement is medicine in persons with Parkinson's disease, in people that are aging, and in everyone else, because what the body releases when we move feeds the brain, protects the blood-brain barrier, saves some of the cells that would degenerate in Parkinson's disease, delivers the dopamine that our brains are lacking in some forms of Parkinson's disease, gives us a sense of purpose, reduces depression, and actually still, if nothing else, if that wasn't enough, keeps the body fitness elevated in times when we need it to react quickly to prevent a fall.
Wow. You said a lot there. So I like the bumper sticker, movement is medicine. I think
Thank you.
that's so as far as exercise goes, it's really not about a prescribed exercise. It's just about moving more. That's really the priority in all of this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's exactly right. I could go out. I played 6 games of pickleball this morning, and I could call that exercise if we want, but formally and formerly, that wouldn't have been called exercise. That's just a recreational sport. Well, I wore a 12-pound weight vest and got after it when I did it. To me, that was a workout, but that
Yeah.
was enjoyable. And I want to find for every person I get a chance to work with an enjoyable way for them to identify with movement. Doesn't have to be pickleball, ping pong, pedaling for Parkinson's, dance, many other features. Find what suits you. And as I say, let the brain choose itself.
I think that's great. I think there's a lot of people, with Parkinson's who are fearful about movement for good reason. But maybe they're fearful of falling. They're worried they're going to get too tired. They're worried, that their symptoms might get worse. So how do you advise them to, stay moving and stay active, but in a safe way to build that confidence, in what they're in their movement?
That's a great question. Fear does occupy a great amount of our cognitive resources. So if you're fearful and moving, you're already dividing your attention, but in an unhealthy way. It's not going to be productive. And your brain's alarm centers, reductive to say your amygdala, fear center, starts to spike up cortisol, your heart rate elevates, your respiration rate elevates, and you become focused on body parts that you perceive will be problematic. My back is stiff, my foot won't pick up. The movement becomes worse. Now let me answer your question, Sue. When we want to try to help an individual overcome fear, it is not altogether different than overcoming a phobia. And the current science on this is very much like exposure-based therapy with unexpected wins. If I'm scared of a spider, the current psychological approach is bring the spider under a glass. It can't hurt me. I'm okay with it. Fear of bridges, fear of open spaces, everything is rehabilitated, at least in part now, with exposure response prevention. That's a big term. We now do the same thing in therapy. When individuals are fearful, we identify, work with the individual. What triggers your fear? Let's give you a small dosage of it and allow you to pull the ripcord so you can get out of it with autonomy whenever you want to, so that it's a controllable dosage with no consequences and you have some unexpected wins. I'll give you one last point on this without going on to too long of a diatribe. When your brain predicts that you will have an error or that you will be fearful, but in fact you did not experience fear or you did not need help from the therapist, didn't lose your balance, didn't catch your foot, we have something that's known as a reward prediction error. And all that really matters for our audience is that delivers dopamine. I thought I would do bad. I did great. Brain is lit up with dopamine. You actually take less dopamine when you exercise and surprise yourself, or you need less dopamine because you're producing it endogenously. So the short answer is small amounts of success in environments or contexts that were formerly provoking your fear.
Wow. So just give it a shot,
Give it
basically,
a
in a
shot
controlled,
under
safe way.
protected,
Yeah.
protected environments.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So you're certainly not going to get better if you don't try. So, if you don't
That's
get,
right. Because the
yeah.
next time you face it without being intentionally putting yourself into it, your
Hmm.
fear response, having been so long since you saw a spider, drove over a bridge, or experienced a crowd, is actually going to be higher.
Right, right, right. Because it's just your perception of the danger versus the actual danger, or versus your body's response to that stimulus. Because you think I'm going to stand up and I'm going to fall. Well, if you stand up, you're not just going to drop. You're going to test that, your body against gravity. Well, how does that feel? And how do I feel confident just right here? So I hear what you're saying, Mike. I like that.
You do hear what I'm saying, and I'm not even going to add on to that because you summarized it beautifully.
Well, thank you. So I think this comes from your book, The Brain That Chooses Itself. But I think you talked about daily choices that people can make to build habits for a healthy brain. So what are like some simple things that people could build into their daily routines that support their brain and body while they age?
Okay, there's two big ways to answer this, which complements nicely back to our third question, if I recall today for the day, where we talk about movement is medicine. And I started to mention exercise snacks. So the first thing that I'll do to answer this is tell you a few more examples of readily available in your home, what we call frictionless exercise snacks, because they're available. In my home, I leave a pair of 20-pound weights around. And when I go around behind a couch, I just pump off 50 of those with each arm. It's available. If it wasn't available, I wouldn't do as many of them. So for people at any fitness level to be thinking about 5 sit to stands, I got out of bed. You know what? I'm going to do it 3 more times and try it kind of fast so that I can over prepare myself. When I brush my teeth, I'm going to stand in the most reasonable but difficult position I can. Feet touching together, feet astride, feet lined up or on one leg if that's safe for you. Additionally, I could answer this by way of vigorous, intermittent lifestyle physical activities. That's a mouthful. Let's make it easy and approachable. So we talked about exercise snacks, something that I could reach over and grab a handful of health. This is VILPA, vigorous, intermittent lifestyle physical activity, doing the things that you would have already done that day, but inserting just a little bit of an intensity. I'm going out to get the mail. I'm going to take 5 steps as quickly as I can. And the first few and the last few steps, I'll just take at my normal pace. I need to go up and down the stairs. I'm going to try to take these 3 steps quickly while holding on to a handrail. I talked about the bed mobility example. I could do several repetitions of that with speed. I could actually sit on the armrest of my couch, the highest surface that I could sit on in my home, and try some very short sit to stands with some power right there. So between exercise snacks and VILPA, science tells us that we're feeding the body And that in turn creates a better immune system, reduced inflammation, more blood flow to the brain, more dopamine, and in fact also protects the blood brain barrier. So, if in fact that wasn't enough, remember the last thing I'll tell you is this. Our first question, we talked about Parkinson's diseases are not just movement based, they also have non motor features. Those movements that I just told you about, they actually help to reduce the non motor features, autonomic nervous system, pain, sensory, cardiac, and otherwise. So you get the total package from just getting some everyday choices. You get to choose them, whatever feels healthiest to
Mhm.
you, inserted inside your day and doesn't take any extra time.
Yeah, that's great. So I know in the OT world we talk about high intensity ADLs. So it's
Oh,
like
yeah.
putting your shirt on as fast as you can. It's just increasing your speed, or folding towels as fast as you can because it's not a normal rate of speed, but it speeds you up and makes you think a little faster and move a little faster and fire your neurons a little faster. So I like that. I like you can incorporate
Yeah.
exercise doesn't have to be lifting weights. Exercise is just normal things you do and doing them in a different way or more often or with, a little more struggle. It's good.
Yes, yeah, beautifully said. And I love the ADL example there. I had a triathlete friend of mine that I would train with for years, and he said, Mike, to go fast, you've got to, well, to be fast, you have to go fast. So if you never practice with speed, when you need it, it's not available. And I like the ADL example. Thank you.
Sure. Okay, I got our last question of the day. Okay, if someone listening today might have Parkinson's or cares for somebody with Parkinson's, what's the one thing that they should maybe get started doing this week? I think I know what you're going to say, but where do you even start?
I might surprise you.
Oh,
Um, I would tell you one thing you could do is measure a meaningful activity that you are not satisfied with right now in your movement. And that movement could be, gosh, it takes me a long time, or it takes me 3 repetitions and attempts to stand up. Measure it. Give yourself 30 seconds from one reliable chair and count how many repetitions you can make in 30 seconds. If in fact sit to stand is not your difficulty, try bed mobility. How long does it take you to get 2 full repetitions of lying down, sit up, stand up, to sit back down, lie back down, and repeat it? Measure it.
measure it.
Option 3, how many steps does it take for you to get from this point in your hallway to that point? Okay, Sue, once anyone has measured an attribute that's meaningful to them, the opportunity to gamify presents itself. And we say game on now, because now you try to beat your own score with some intensity, with some engagement, and you will release dopamine when you see that you've set a new personal best. That's the one thing I would tell people to do.
That's the best. I'm so glad you said that because gamifying things, I mean, we do that at Asbury every day. We gamify everything because games are fun and games keep people engaged and it gets a little competitive. And to get
Yeah,
competitive with yourself, but you have to know what you're starting with in order to have
got to
that.
measure it. That's it.
Yeah.
And to those people that are listening, remember, if you don't set a personal best today, I'm hailing from Las Vegas today, and when Sue's contacting me, this is the city of what we call the near miss effect. So I want listeners to know that if you don't set a personal best, it still releases dopamine because you're like, oh, I almost got it. That lights your brain up, entices you to make another effort. So don't be disappointed, be elated that you tried and got a near miss. That's just as or more healthy.
That's brain health right there. That's fantastic. Well, Mike Studer, thank you so much for all of your valuable information. I think our listeners are really going to appreciate it. And thank you for the work you do. You do really amazing things. I'm going to post your book link in our comments so that if anybody wants to read, both of your books, I want them to be able to do that. So,
Sue, thanks so much for the opportunity. And I appreciate the chance to touch a few lives of people with Parkinson's disease.
oh, thanks so much, Mike. Take care.
Bye bye.